I agree. Facts are important. So let's look at some of the facts of the last 10 months. Energy prices up. Inflation up. Mortgage rates up. And the member for Caldwell is correct. Life has been and is tough for Australians. Yet we have an out-of-touch Prime Minister that stands at that dispatch box in question time and says, and I quote, "It has been a good 10 months." Well, it's been a great 10 months for the Prime Minister. We clearly know it hasn't been a great 10 months for the member for Caldwell's constituents. I wonder if she's taken those concerns to this Prime Minister. It's definitely been a tough 10 months for the constituents of Casey, who've got energy prices rising, inflation rising and mortgage rates rising. And it's amazing to hear those opposite stand in the MPI and talk about how tough it is on cost of living. Yet yesterday and today, from government backbenchers, not one question to the Prime Minister about cost of living. We had over 10 questions on AUKUS and great policy by the coalition to get that agreement on. Talking about the Indian Free Trade Agreement, not one question from a government backbencher to the Prime Minister or the Treasurer about cost of living. Because you need to remember, with this government and with this ALP, it's actually not about providing solutions. Let's go back to the quote from the ALP National Secretary, Paul Erickson. "You must look like you are responding first and foremost." And that's an interesting quote. You must look like you are responding first and foremost. So you don't have to actually provide a solution. You just have to look like you're providing a solution. And that's what we're seeing from this government. And we also see many opposite get a little bit frustrated and angry when we hold them to account for their promises. And guess what? That's our responsibility, to hold you to account, because you were all happy during the election to go to your constituents and talk about $275 reductions in pricing. But let's go through the facts, because the member for Caldwell is correct. Facts matter. That promise was made in December of 2021. That was made in December of 2021 based on modelling that the ALP commissioned. Well done on them for getting modelling. But then something pretty important happened in March last year. What was that? We're now hearing the Prime Minister talk about what happened in March. He didn't talk about it during the campaign. Russia invaded Ukraine. Absolutely. Did that happen? Yes. Did that impact energy prices? Absolutely. So what happened from March until the May election? These are the facts that those opposite don't like to talk about. The Prime Minister, members of the ALP and candidates continued to repeat the $275 price reduction. The Prime Minister himself 30 times made that promise after the invasion of Ukraine. So facts do matter. And we will continue to hold this Prime Minister and this government to account, because it is a broken promise. If he hadn't issued it afterwards, if he'd gone to the campaign talking about Ukraine, maybe a bit different, but he didn't. After the election, has not said it once. And there is no doubt Australians are doing it tough. And we've got a Prime Minister that continues to fail to take responsibility for the cost of living crisis that Australians have. And he actually made a good point. And I was actually shocked when he made it, but it's true. I don't think he meant it. It must have been an accident. When he talked about how increased energy prices, increased supply chain pressures, they drive inflation, they make it harder for all Australians. And that is absolutely correct. And that is why this Prime Minister does not have a plan for energy. He talks about his gas cap, which is actually a bad policy, because in his own words today in question time, he talked about how business wants certainty, and business needs certainty to invest. AMIO were talking about a warning on a shortage of gas, because business knows that if they invest capital in the gas market, there is a risk that this government will intervene and change the rules. Because business knows if you change the rules once as a government, you're prepared to do it again. So by driving uncertainty, they are reducing investment in gas, which reduces supply. And guess what? When you reduce supply, prices of energy go up in the long term. I know they don't like to talk about it, but this is a Prime Minister that won't take responsibility, doesn't have a plan, and Australian people are struggling because of this Prime Minister.